Hey, Mabrika. What's up, my people? Again, I believe this is going through YouTube, but I'll post it on my Facebook. I need probably to do a multiple streaming. I'll get that done probably today because I'm gonna do another broadcast. I'll be on today, catch up. Anyway, excuse me. I got some good mint here. This is a mint crystals, and you put it in. You can do it with coal, but it gets very strong, and it opens you up. But I got a little candle thing over here that I put it on and heat it up, with frankincense. I got my frankincense here. This frankincense is uplifting, and I got my epileptic. It's invigorating, but I do that, sent the room up, I did a little meditation. So I got my beads, so I just threw it on my neck. But I did a little meditation of and that's when you deal with spirit. And that's when we, before I start going into the title, which is the daughters of men, I wanted to go back into biblical because I'm still in Genesis and I'm still breaking that down, you know what I'm saying? And how that affects in today's day and time and how that puts you in that sunken place. So we're going to go into that. But before I do that, I want to just mention about the difference or what I ascertain, what I stand to reason about spirit, soul, and body. Body is easy. We know what the body is, okay? What the soul is. Soul, solar plexus, where the energy is at, right? And then you got the spirit, it's your character and personality. Now let me explain. Let me draw this diagram, this analogy. Let's say you have a ship, right? A big, huge ship. The ship, the body is the ship itself, right? The metal, the ship, the body of the ship, it's itself. In the bottom of that ship, you have men that put in the coal into the furnace so as to give energy to the ship. The coal, they're at the bottom. They don't know which direction the ship is going, except for the foreman, because who have contact with the bridge. But we're going to talk about that. But the core men in the ship, the bottom of the ship, are simply putting in coal into the furnace and giving the energy, the pressure for the ship to move. That's the soul. On top, you got the bridge where the captain sits. They're navigating. They got navigators. They're looking at the constellation. They're looking whether they need more energy. So the captain, it's your navigator. Your captain is your spirit. Because if you got a good captain who has a good character and a good personality, most likely the ship as a whole, all the men, even down in the bottom, putting in the coal, and the ship is going to have a better chance to navigate where they have to go. But if you got a very irresponsible captain who doesn't have a good personality, doesn't have a good character, then no one's going to really listen to him. No, it's going to create a very uncomfortable situation for the whole ship at large. So it's like your mind, your captain, right? Your spirit is your character and personality. If you got a good spirit, a good personality, a good spirit, right? You do your work to navigate that energy that when you need more energy, you can call down here and say, I need more energy. Breathe. I need more. You must have more energy. It's like if there's a fire and you got that character, you want to save somebody, you muscle up that energy to go in there, the nerve, the energy to go in there and save somebody. You know what I'm saying? Work it. Well, I hope that's clear. The spirit, the soul, and the body. So every time we mention spirit, right, we have to think of character and personality. You got good spirits and you got bad spirit. You got the spirit of the day, right? You got the spirit in an object. It's the character, the personality, and how it affects everything else. Okay. And so I just wanted to quickly go over that, you know. Now in the biblical narrative, we let off with the tribe. We remember that another thing is when the script was being formatted and it was drawn, there were other stories and other tablets that was drawn in to create this scripture script, and character, right? um you also have to figure out that at that time, let's say in the biblical narrative, when you're talking about these tribes, the Adamic tribe, and you're talking about the Gan, the paradise, right? The enclosure, Gan, and then you had Sada, which is Sudan. You had this area, right? You also have to figure out that at the time that this narrative is speaking about the continent, the shift, the continents were more condensed, it was more together. Later on, you'll see that when the time of Noah, that you started to get the flood and you started to get also stories about big catastrophic events happening that sort of like ties in with the continental plates, the tectonic plates being shifted. And so the continent started to grow apart and rivers started to grow. You know what I'm saying? Like for instance, the Red Sea wasn't there. And they talk about this in masonry too, about the moon parting from the earth, about the moon, with Saudi Arabia, what's called Saudi Arabia today, that landmass was connected to Africa. And then on the other side of that, you had another river, right? Another sea, another river, and that was connected. So then you had the continent, which is known today as Africa, was connected with North America and South America. And then you had a bland area called Utla. So you had a one massive, massive land mass, which they call Ganawa. And people say, well, then how, I mean, how did the people, separate? Well, and they try to make sense out of that, you know. And when you deal with geography and oceanography and geography, you get to and you study the tectonic plates and how shifting things happens, and floods and certain geographical shift goes on within the planet. That's a study. That's an area. Those are scientists that study that. And you could be in a continent like right now. The continent is in a body of water. The only continent that is stuck to the middle of the earth, or what they said, the bottom of the earth, the only continent that really doesn't have any plates on it is really that continent, Africa. So everything got separated from that. That's the core. They call it the molar. That continent is the core. And all the other continents shift for and this is millions of years. So when you look at the biblical narrative, they took stories of millions of years and condensed it, because they're not giving you dates in the biblical narrative, right? They're not giving you any dates. So, but what they did is took these stories that are mentioned in these tablets on the walls of Kemet. These tablets is papyrus, all over the world. The Mayan, have stories, ancient stories about floods and how the continent and how they were able to walk from the continent known as Africa and walk into South America without there being any sea there. The Atlantic Ocean did not exist. So there is oceanography. There's biologists who study certain species that appears in other and they're wondering what's the connection. How did these species who were so related get to there? You know what I'm saying? How did man, how you got ancient stories and men that always say they were at that continent, but yet, they're saying that everyone came from Africa and spread out. You know what I'm saying? So there are people that study that. So you're really gonna have to go deep into it, and I really can't go so deep into it right now because it will take. I'm when I get my desktop, because I'm doing this right now off of my phone, and I got my pad, my iPad here, small one here. But once I get my desktop going, 'cause I want to get my studio going, I'll be able to post pictures, sources, diagrams. You know what I'm saying? I know I could do it now, but I just not too savvy with this. And I know there's ways you could do it with your phone or iPhone or an iPad. So I just need to do some more work on that. So because I have a lot of sources, I have a lot of scientific in this iPad here. I got a lot of scientific PDFs and you know membership to a lot of professional organizations because that's what I like. You know what I'm saying? That's what I like. So this particular podcast, I wanted to go into. Let me see what did I do with it. The daughter of men, and how did that relate even to this day and time. Now, when we go into, wait a minute, I can't find it. What the hell did I do with it? I made notes because I always make notes of stuff that I get into, but it seems like I don't have it. I know I put the note somewhere. Just give me 1 second, because you go into the Hebrew. Okay. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Just give me 1 second. Let me look for it. Because this was about. Okay, here we go. I do have it right here. So, and again, for the biblical narrative, we left off with these tribes. So remember, when these tribes, they crossed over into Europe, they walked over into Europe, and that's the story of Cain when he was told ousted out of that area. And that ties in historically, and I have those sources of certain tribes that came out of the Hindus Valley, at India into the Hindus Valley, and these were people that had albinism, because when most of the species on Earth and even human species were melanated people at first. And what happened is that when something in nature shift, right, and the chemistry shifts, and you have what let's say for the first time they encounter in their tribe someone born different, albino, most likely it was different and they were ousted. Like, for instance, the polar bears. The polar bear is an albino bear, but it also has a history that out of the bear, it was ousted too because it was born different. It happens a lot among species of primates with monkeys. When a monkey's born albino, a lot of time all the other monkeys, they kind of shun that away. It takes the mother to protect it. I've seen a nice. I've seen a documentary about that, about a primate. I think it was apes or chimpanzee or apes. One of the primates. And what happened was she born sons to the head primate, and you got all these tribal monkey walking tribes. They call them troops, and she bore an albino son, and most of the other monkeys, they started shunning. It was the mother that protected him. You know what I'm saying? Protected him. That's also the story of, Tarzan, what I'm saying? When you look at the movie of Tarzan, and he wasn't born out of the monkey woman, but the thing is, it was different. You know what I'm saying? And so human nature or animalistic nature, what it is they treat, there is a little bias ingrown in us. You know what I'm saying? This is an ancient story. This is what happened to a certain amount of people that were ousted. You know what I'm saying? Because genetically, mutation that happens in nature, you know, can't fault that. It's just happened in nature. So that's the story of that. And remember, I told you that they was supposed to mix in with the Habal, with the brothers Abel. Cain, why Cain's sister was supposed to mix in with Abel's sister, and it was supposed, or the women on the one side, and it was so to be, to sort of like equalize and sort of like balance. And these are the Anunnakis, what they call the Elohims, the gods who were orchestrating this. They were orchestrating. You could see it. Just think about it and read. When you read and you get into the stories and you get into these ancient tablets, you get to see what's playing here. You know what I'm saying? And so these gods, or these Elohims, the Anunnakis, they had a different culture, a different way of living. But they took people from the landmass. They took it from Africa and created themselves slaves. Slaves. This is the first. You see, this is how we're going to tie it in the narrative. This was the first indication of what you call slavery, because you got an enclosed garden, and then you got those that told to till the ground. So you got an order being given to a class of people. And remember, when you go deep into the story and you're looking at, Adam was a mixture of the Watutsi and the Kushites, which were Hindu. Kushites came from a Hindu stock. You know what I'm saying? You can go back. This is historical. You can go back and back and back and see it, that the Kushites were of an Indonesian, and Indonesian was of a Hindu stock of people, and they were very melanated also. These people mixed in with the Watutsi. That's what gave your Adamic a mixture. And then your Eve, which you call the Hakawa mixture, or Eve, and I forgot, Navena, I think is another name in Hebrew that they use. That was a mixture of the Twa people, the Thais people, with the San people. And if you look at the San people, even to today, they're they're in Africa, in South Africa, and the bush, they call the Bushmen. They're not very melanated. They come in different hues. They come in a red hue and a lighter hue, and their eyes are different. That they saying they are the one that they're genetically are linked into the Orientals, because when they traveled, you know what I'm saying, the Orientals and the folded the eyelids. That's when you look at the San people, the Khoi people of South Africa and Uganda, in those areas, they're not very dark at all. So this was a mixture between the really dark Watutsi and the Kushites with the Twa people, or what they call the Tahai people, were dark, with the San people who were of a lighter shade of people and different phenotypes. So when this mixture came together, you created what they call the human. You created a different stock. Tall people, short people, middle-sized people, the hair way, different type of texture of hair. All of this comes by this admixture. This is genetics. And this is what the gods, or the Elohim and Anunnaki, and you go back into that culture and you look at those tablets, you get to see how they were sort of like genetically engineering, like the story of Ninti, you know what I'm saying, and the potter's man, and what they call the creating man out of the potter. Because if you know anything about pottery and being a potter, man, you understand that you shape the clay, right? And you shape it to your wanting or whatever. But then you have to step back and nature takes its form. You see, it hardens on its own. It takes its form. There's a chemical process that goes on because you just shape it, right? And then you see it manifest on its own. And that's when it comes to Kemet, and you see in the ancient tablets, that's that story. So they brought this mixture together. They enclosed them in a garden because it tells you right there, Gan was the garden. And then if you go in anthropology, or you go into a lot of these ancient sites, you get to see that there were gardens flourishing all over that area, even Saudi Arabia. You know what I'm saying? So the idea of it being enclosed was that it was being protected, and the gods were telling certain certain people who was practically they thought of being beneath them in a way, saying, "Don't touch this tree of good and evil." But when they did touch it, guess what? It says they became like us. I think in Genesis. We got, one day I would like to post it down. You can see it yourself. In Genesis, talk about man has become like us. That means that these gods were partaking of that tree of good and evil. They were invested in the manufacturing. And again, remember we went into this tree of good and evil as being the poppy plant, because when you go into that part of the world, that's one of the ancient time, or even up to now, that's one of the biggest harvests. That's one of the biggest commodity that they have. And all around the world, the pharmaceutical companies use the opium and convert it into morphine and convert it into oxycodone, hydrocodone, convert it into many different pharmaceuticals. Even at war, Vietnam War, this is what they shoot you with morphine if you get shot, so as to kill the pain and put you in that place where you're not feeling, you know what I'm saying, you feel good, you know what I'm saying, you feel sedated. Yeah, hold on. I made some tamarindo juice with some sea moss and some honey, and it's wonderful. You know, so the whole biblical narrative, as it plays on today, is that is the first indication that this narrative also deal with slavery mentality, because these gods created, these Elohim had these tribe of people that created the Adamic in this situation. You know what I'm saying? And then they were kicked out and brought back in. You know what I'm saying? This narrative. And you see, when you read the biblical narrative, you see how these gods operate. And then if you go back into that section and you they unearth those tablets, you see how they conducted their life. You see that these Anunnaki also had man wives. So homosexuality was a normal practice in the Babylonian time in a lot of these biblical narratives. And that's where we're going to segue into the daughter of men. And one thing that it's very, what I started thinking about is that when you go into Genesis 6 and you start reading in Hebrew, you get a totally different reasoning, about what's really going on here. Because when you look at the concordance and you look at the lexicon, you know what I'm saying, you see these words, you see that in English, it's sort of like translated and it puts you in a trance and it's misleading. But you got to go back into the Hebrew. You got to go back into the lexicon, the Chaldee lexicon, that the other languages that exist at that time. And when you look at Genesis 6 and you look at the daughter of men, well, in Hebrew, in the concordance 1323, the word is bath. Bath. That's where you get the word bath from. Take a bath. You know what I'm saying? And you look at the definition in the concordance, it has to give you, because it's hard. It's difficult. It's difficult for one to translate a Semitic language into a non-Semitic language because one word can mean many different things. So this one word "bath" meant girl, adopted girl, a granddaughter, a female child, a young woman, a maiden. So when it talks about these sons of God, when it says Ben Elohim, that means the sons or the grandsons of the Elohim, in plural again. These sons of these Elohim, they took the daughters of men. Now you look at the word took in Hebrew, it would mean take, carry away, capture, seize. So this script is alluding the fact that these sons of the Anunnaki, these grandsons of the Elohim, they took the young women of the Adamic population. They took them, they seized them, they carried them off. How did that play today? I look at the story of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. She was of a richer hierarchy. Her father was a newspaperman in England. This is of a hierarchy, a socialite. It's sort of like children of the Elohim, so to say, to speak. Right? They dealt a lot with the Israeli organization, like the Mossad, right? And the government, the Israeli government. Robert Maxwell was very, very revered by the Israelis, that they even gave him a funeral procession in Israel. They took his body over there, and they gave him a funeral procession. And they also have the prime minister of Israel at that time, forgot his name, saying that this man did more for Israel than the average Jew. You know what I'm saying? This man was serious. This man was all about Israel, and he was Englishman, or maybe he had Jewish ancestry. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, these hierarchy, these people that, and I'm not talking about regular Jews, I'm talking about these Israelis that are in a hierarchy. They sit in government. They sit at high seat. These are the ambassadors. So this is your equivalence of Elohim in ancient time. They trace their descendancies back through ancient Mesopotamia. That's what Israeli is all about. They go all the way back into those dynasties of Babylon or Mesopotamia. You know what I'm saying? And so they took daughters of men, carried them all to this island, you know, with the whole Jeffrey Epstein. This is the same narrative that's playing today's day and time. These grandsons, these daughters, these grandsons, this socialites, these used to take and even political hierarchy here in America that walk around like they are the gods of the earth. They take daughters of men, young ladies that are of not privileged families, of your working class or your trailer park. One thing, they targeted a lot of girls from trailer parks. A lot of things going to come out. Or hardworking young ladies. They wanted young ladies because it's the same narrative. It's the same practice that goes on for 10,000 years. This is nothing new. It's just that in this day and time, they got caught. They got revealed. Everything is being revealed. So they got revealed and they got caught. But this has been going on since ancient time. You're talking about 10,000 years. 10,000 years this dynasty has been operating with the submersive, the culture of the Babylonian Empire and the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire. with the young boys. This is their culture. And it just manifests into this day and time. So that's what I look at. When I look at the biblical narrative, I say, wow, this is happening today. What happened back then when you got the sons of the Elohims taking, seizing, carrying away the daughters of men, daughters, young maiden women. You see, this you do your own investigation if you want to get into that. I'm not saying this is for everybody. I do it because it's clarified things in me, and because I'm invested in writing, and you have to also be aware of logical fallacies. And one of the logical fallacy is the sunken fallacy. And it comes by you being so invested in a certain ideology that you can't see other ideology. You don't want to deal with other ideology. You immediately fence it off. Oh, I'm just going to believe. I'm just going to believe. I'm going to have faith and trust. That's all. Well, that's okay. That's how you want to be. But remember, you can believe in your cart that it's going to take you to your destination, right? But not know that the wheel is loose. See? Think about that. Think about that really, really good. It's to know. Do you believe in God? No, I don't believe in God. I know God. It's difference. So it's to know things will set you free from that sunken place. Now you're able to see other perspectives. You're able to look at certain things, which later on we're going to talk about the whole vaccine thing and the COVID-19. You know what I'm saying? Well, there's a little war going on here, man. And that's what I know is in the podcast. There's a war going on. And how it deals with the biblical narrative too. There was a war going on. There was plagues. You know what I'm saying? There were viruses going on at that time. Virus is nothing new on this planet. Pandemic is nothing new. It's in the Bible, it's in the biblical narrative also. It's in ancient scrolls, ancient tablets talk about viruses. So it's all over. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we have to be very, very cautious of how, certain people around us are invested in that sunken place and they're complicit to it. And that's fine. Because I try not to, I'm gracious. I have respect for everybody's perspective. And if that's the way you want to think, that's the way you want to think. But like I said, if they flip the script on you, no, before it's too late, before the bus leaves, before it's too late, if I'm there, I will help anyone, because that's the way I am. I will help anyone. And I would give whatever information, because I want to know. I'm testing the grounds too. You know what I'm saying? I don't know everything. I'm testing it too. I'm learning as I go along. But this is what's happening. Is that through meditation and to learning how to open up those centers in my because you see, I do a lot of also work, which we're going to segue into music, a lot into frequencies, because I went to New York University. I got a scholarship to go to New York University. I was in high school. My music teacher, William Seltzer, may rest in peace. William Seltzer was a German guy, a saxophone player, and he was head of the music department at Evander Child. He saw something in me, to the point that I started in the section of flute. I was a percussionist, but then I wanted to study some wind. He told me, study some other type of instrument. So I said, let me pick up the flute. It seems to be easy enough. So I started learning the flute till I got to the point where I got first chair at the Council Wind Orchestra and the flute. And then I was also doing jazz, and I was already starting to improvise on the flute, learning improvisation with flute, with my scales. So I was excelling pretty well. He saw that I was able to pick up musical concept really, really quick. He saw something in me to the point that he had me conduct the Concert Wind Orchestra. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy because you had I did go to music theory where you're learning how to read music and learning about notations and notes. And when you're a conductor, you have to be aware of all the instruments. You have to have a good ear. So he was helping me learn and develop my inner ear. You know what I'm saying? As far and also my ear to hear tonations of different instruments. So different sections instruments have different keys. But when a conductor has his main sheet, he has all of the keys there. He has all the body of the work, and he make sure that everybody is on chord, reading it right, and cues the different sections to come in. So I was learning conducting. I was given a while. It was very interesting, and I was learning how to conduct. The first to conduct with a stick. Conduct. Let me see what my here. A drumstick. I'm practicing a lot. So how to conduct, you know, conduct music, give the timing. So I had good timing because I was a percussionist. So the NYU had a program called the HEOP, the Higher Education Opportunity Program, and it was for those that show musical talent, but at the same time, my grades they were pretty good. I was more like a student, not an A plus, not an exceptional student, but I got some B's and A's. I'm more into B's and A's. I was in that, so I was passing my classes. I was always in the music room. Always listening to music or practicing on the flute, and that was my hangout. So even if I didn't want to go to a math class or science class, if I wanted to skip that class, I would go into the music room. What I'm saying? Instead of going outside where everybody else play handball or smoke some weed, whatever, I'll go into the music room, and hang out. That was my thing. So he saw that, and he picked me, NYU, the HEOP program. So then I went in NYU. They got different colleges, and I was at the CNAT, which is the School of Education, Nursing, and Arts profession. So I fell more into the arts profession. Eventually, I think he wanted me to do education, music education, but I fed more into the music performance, and then I went into theater, and I caught a lot of writing class, communication and writing class at NYU. And then, but at one point, at my first year at NYU, I was thinking of what I really wanted to do, and I wanted to be an acoustical engineer. Acoustical engineer deal with frequencies, vibration, noise reductions, and dealing with frequencies and how to acoustic, like in a Radio City Music Hall. I was an acoustical engineer, constructed Radio City Music Hall in a way that wherever you sat in any seat in that orchestra level, because you had the orchestra, the first mezzanine, second mezzanine, that level, you can hear when they had the symphonic play, you can hear all the instrumentation because of the way acoustically everything was being mapped out. So I was interested in that. I was interested in acoustic. I wanted to become an acoustical engineer, but to become an acoustical engineer, you had to study some engineering course. Either you could be electrical engineer, you could study civ. So I went to civic engineering, so I was able to pick up class in AutoCAD and MicroStation. I was great in MicroStation. Oh man, my work was impeccable, and also drafting by hand. I knew how to use my rulers and draft everything by hand, and to do a body of work. Because that's work that you have to do by hand. Mechanical, you have to learn a little bit about mechanics, and you also had to learn, because it's dealing with dimensions and it's dealing with it. So MicroStation to me is awesome. AutoCAD, I had a little bit of problems with AutoCAD, but because AutoCAD, you see, MicroStation was just like one piece of on the screen on the computer. You use one piece, like one piece of paper, and you draw your diagram. AutoCAD had levels. That's what you see when an engineer drafting, the engineer come in, they flip the page, you see different levels. You see the plumbing layouts, you see the wall layout, you see the electrical layout, all of that. So that's levels to build the foundation. And so AutoCAD did that. Program did it all computerized. You know what I'm saying there. So I had little problems with it, but I did my work. I did it. I did it. You know, I did pretty good. I should have kept on. You know what I'm saying. But what happened was is that I started to do a lot of more performance. I started hanging out with somebody in NYU, and we started going to a lot of little places. It was strange because in New York City, you had certain clubs that were in areas very, very secluded where a lot of musicians would hang out. Man, I could tell you a place called Jazzmania. And I'm just going to briefly give you a little story about that. I hung out with a friend, and name was Danny Tredello, something like that. A good drummer. You know, I've seen some of his work on YouTube. Very good drummer. You know, and he takes you to a place called Jazzmania. So I went out on Jazzmania. That's the first time I met Batato, the percussionist, the conga player. And I started working with Batato, being like an assistant to Batato, you know, when he played in other locations throughout New York. And I met Tito Puente there. And I met George Benson. Because they were all playing with Jorge Dalto. And that's before Jorge Dalto passed away. Jorge Dalto, if anybody don't know, was an Argentinian pianist, a superb pianist from Argentina. This guy was so bad. I mean, he's one of the first guys that I know that I saw in person because I met him, you know, hugged him, and you know, we hung out a little bit, you know, because it was a very open place and all musicians in there and students and music students. A lot of them knew that I was going to NYU, so they were like very, you know, interested in me, and they were mentoring me a lot of things. So Joel Dalto, man, he used to play the piano and go into the piano and pluck it at the same time. He's playing, plucking it. It was so amazing piano work. Unbelievable. And I met some conga players. You know, Batato was amazing too. Batato used to come in drunk all the time. Because you know, in this place, Jazzmania, they had like the bar was made of a 2x4 and plywood. It was really cheesy, and they had a refrigerator, and the only thing they sold, I think, was Budweiser beer. It was funny. It was funny. And this place, you see George Benson, Tio Puente, you see extraordinary musicians coming through this place. It was like the dirty, dingy place, and they were there. Let me first tell you about Batato. Batato was like Budweiser down, drunk, and I was like holding him, like, "Yo, you okay, man?" He's drunk. Then when Jorge Dalto called him on stage for him to play, I don't know what happened to his drunkenness. He'll get on that conga, and it was like he was not drunk. We'll play some awesome rhythm patterns. I was like, "Yo, how he do that? This man was just drunk." But when he got up there, it was like something overcame him, and he started playing like unbelievable. Now, this place was a very dingy place, so I go to the bathroom, nasty, disgusting bathroom. When I turn over like that, I'm in one stall. When I turn like this, guess who's right next to me? George Benson, in a white mink, just all in white, with a white mink and a white fedora. And I was like, "Oh, damn, who's this guy?" When I looked at this, George Benson, he goes, "What's up, kid?" He said, "What's up?" I said, "What's up?" And then we started talking a little bit. When I finished in the bathroom, we walked out. Then we started talking. Then he got up there and did On Broadway. Well, the band used to play on Broadway. They recorded it, I think, also. And that's where Tito Puente got on the timbales. You know, it was they did on Broadway like a cha-cha. You know what I'm saying? Amazing stuff, man. Amazing. New York, I mean, and that place, Jazzmania, I think it was around 23rd Street, somewhere like that. Like in the, yeah. And it was secluded. It was like on the second floor, a loft. It was a loft, the Jazzmania loft. Unbelievable, man. And the music building, when I was at NYU, I started to play with this band, you know, jazz band that I met. The guy was from Harlem. No, he was actually from the Bronx, but we met each other in Harlem. He wanted me to play in his band, percussion, and he knew I was going to NYU. I think he was going to, he was going to a business school. I forgot, Parson University, I think it is, in New York. So he wanted to form the band. So he came for money because this guy was studying. He was studying to be an MBA. So he knew about money and stocks, and accounting and stuff like that. So he made a little bit of money that he bought a loft in the music building. And that's before the music building, just when it was starting. The music building was on, I believe, 33rd Street, somewhere like that, and 8th Avenue. The music building was a place, it was a building with the elevator that you handle, and it was a bunch of lofts. So he had a loft in there. In that building, they had a club on the second floor, I believe, that if you wanted to present your work, you went there and you jam out. They had jam sessions. I met Gato Barretti. Gato Barretti. Gato Barretti. I met him in the elevator first when he was going. He had a loft up high. I think the more prestige you were, the more famous you went up high, because Madonna, her band had a loft up there too. And I met her a couple of times on the elevator, Madonna. And that was before she became huge. Madonna's band used to rehearse in there. So Gato Barretti, man, I sat in with him in that club, in that club, and percussion. He wanted me, but I wasn't the type to run after anybody. You know what I'm saying? I was a little not invested, like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm available. We got a loft we had, I think, on the 4th floor. And tell me, yeah, I'm there. I'm with this brother, man. I forgot his name. He became a comedian. Shit, man. I don't know if he was still alive, man, but he was a bass player. So he went to Parson. I think it was Parson. Yeah. Or some business school up in New York. It was a business school. And around City Hall, around that area, because I used to meet him down there. And so those experiences, at the time, it was just like I was just a normal kid who was, after school going to NYU. I was from the Bronx, but I spent a lot of time hanging out in the Village and hanging around different musicians that at that time was coming up. Bedward Pumpkin, may he rest in peace, from the In Touch, and and a lot of cats, man, that very, very profound, very good musicians at that time. So, we had good times and we jammed, had good jam sessions and stuff like that. Eddie Palmieri, I sat in one time with Eddie Palmieri because he was rehearsing his horn section at the music building, just the horn section, but he had nobody to carry the beat for the horns, needed to hear percussion. So I came in and I was just hanging out because I was ready to check out Cameo. They had Cameo was doing huge, but they had most of the equipment for Cameo was at the music building. I think they had a loft in there and they kept most of the storage for most of their touring gear, the band, So they were about coming in town. So I wanted to hook up with Cameo because I wanted to do Conga Works with R&B bands and stuff like that. So I ran into Eddie Palmieri, and he was rehearsing his horns, and he needed somebody to get on percussion and keep the beat, and I held it, and he really liked me, and we liked me, and he said, if I ever need anybody, he'll look me up. I told him, I'm at the 4th floor over here at the loft, just leave a message. We had a little thing in the front where you could leave a message for any musician, and I told him, man, that's how you get in touch with me. But I left after a few like about a year later, a couple of months later, I left, and I started doing. I went into another, area, spiritual answer. But anyway, I just wanted to go back and say that, this sunken place, we got to be very, very careful. We can be complicit, but they use a lot of times, a lot of these things that are manifesting right now. It's planned from a playbook. It's like it's planned. They purposely have to plan because remember, You have to plan your life. Like they say, you have to plan your life out. Well, these dynasties think the same way. It's about planning, planning their life, their economics, and planning how, they're going to their future. You know what I'm saying? And this is what's going on. And when you look at the biblical narrative, um, you get to see that a lot of the plans that's going on now, you can see where, and the thing is that a lot of these hierarchy, they know this because they study a lot of this. I'm sure Jeffrey Epstein had a lot of books and conversation. Remember, he had conversation. He was so invested in Harvard University. He had friends from Harvard University. These people meet each other. These are scientists too, and they meet each other and they read books and new findings that we're not privy to. They get it. They get it. They get it. They get that knowledge. They get that the new findings and works in ancient tablets. I mean, they already said that Maxwell, that Ghislaine Maxwell, on her fireplace mantle, she had ancient relics that belongs in the museum, the British Museum. Ancient relics. So these people are invested in the dynasty. They invested in ancient relics and tablets, and they know a lot of this information. A lot of this information, you know. But some of us, we get so into the sunken place, complicit because we don't have an outlet, or we're not invested in it. We're not interested in learning about knowing things. We just basically going on belief, faith, and trust. You know, whereas other people are about facts, scientifically facts. And I hate to use the word historic because his story, but sometimes you got to look into his story to know what's your story, and look into your story. And then also you look at how nature also has its narrative. Nature also reveals things to you. You know what I'm saying? The nature of people, the character and personality of certain people that are around you. You get to observe them and say, oh man, why is that person acting like that? What do they know that I don't know? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so one quick thing, how people are so into that sunken place that these character personalities that they are inhibiting arrogance, man, ignorance. I made a mistake, which I said to myself, I'll never do again. I decided to go into certain podcasts and call in, and I seen how these people operate. And I reveal it right here to you. I went into what they call cross the line, One West, Black Israelites. Man, the arrogance. As soon as I opened up my mouth, it was arrogance. I mean, it was unbelievable. Because I'm like this. I say mabrika, greetings, right? Mabrika, right, means welcome in Taino, right? So let's say you're a person that come to me and wanna you hear me say that, and you come to me, instead of saying mabrika, you say melbrika or mubrika. And I say, oh, if I'm of a caring person, I say, actually it's mabrika. You're saying mubrika, melbrika, might mean something else. Say, but to avoid that, let me just, let me just instruct you, or not struck you down, not instruct you, but let me just gracefully let you know that it's a mabrika. So if you want to greet me in mabrika, I accept that, and then let's have a dialogue. Yo, I came on there. I did not know, because you got different Israeli camps. So some Israelis, you could say shalom, shalom leka, right? Shalom laka, shalom leka, right? So I came out thinking that they Israeli. I say shalom because remember, shalom is the equivalence of salam. Salam and shalom is the same thing because the language of of Syriac and Aramaic stem from the same language, which is a Semitic language, which is Syriac, right? So you got all these different offshoots of the language, right? So it be shalom. The brother immediately, oh man, I ain't having this today. I'm that man. What are you talking about? What nationality? Yo, I mean, what's going on, bro? And I was like, yo, and then I told him, bro, first of all, I might even be your elder. I'm 59 years old, man. And you definitely look young to me. You ain't no elder, you just old. I'm like, what the hell? Bro, it's like they get on the seat. It's their platform. So I was gonna have respect. It's your platform. I'm not coming to challenge you or anything, because that's your platform. I was just interested to know what kind of spiritual system do you have? Is it Kabbalah? And what's the ancient order of Melchizedek? If you guys prescribe to that, what are you Christian? I wanted to know. I was curious to know what's going on. Bro, the arrogance was just the display of arrogance and ignorance. And then I said to myself, I like the brother Tazariak, his name, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes he makes sense of what he says. But I'm like, yo, if your organization, whoever's in the head of your organization, puts you in that position of being a captain of 10,000, if you're in that position and you are in that position to propagate something and represent your camp, you did a terrible job. I'm definitely not interested. Definitely not interested. Definitely want nothing to do with that camp. And I see a lot of so-called Israelites. They take that school and they're as bad as Christians. Matter of fact, a lot of them are Christians, because their whole verbiage is not. If you erase the Israeli out of it, you could think that they're a Christian pastor. With all this rubbish, they throw you all these different quotes from here and this book and that book and the Old Testament, the New Testament, book, lies buried. They bury you in a bunch of lies because they're giving you half truth. They're giving you bits and pieces because they're taking their pieces in here, a piece from here, a piece from here, a piece from there, and throw that at you from the puppet and throw that at you. Therefore, you become buried. And you're in that sunken place. And that's what's going on. No difference. No difference. And also the Muslims, same thing in the khutbah. When they go in Islam. The one that goes to khutbah, the imam, whoever sits up there and start throwing verse from the Quran here and here and here and here and here and here and here. Next thing you know, you buried. You're buried. You're bombarded by this piece, that piece. And never they put those pieces together. And then they tell you just got to believe. We're the believers. You just got to believe. Don't know. Just believe. That's a problem. And that's what I'm here to do. It's like they say, if you see evil or you see something that's not right, you got to speak out, man. That's wisdom. Speak out. Speak out, correct it. Intellect, it's like a knife. You got to cut. And you got to, after you cut it, you put the pieces together. You got to cut it out. Cut that excess fat out. Cut those lies. And bro, the arrogance, the ignorance, the anger. My brother came out with a good point, and he said, anger is like a coal. And you throw this coal at somebody, but guess what? Who's the first one to hold the coal in their hands? It's the person throwing it. So anger's gonna burn you too, man. Do you get that? Do you get that? Anger is like a coal, a hot coal that's thrown at you. But then you got to look at who's the first one to hold the coal in their hands. That's anger. So they're getting burnt also. So that's, an experience that I had, that I said to myself, I got to listen to my moms. It's ridiculous. It's just, I don't need it. I don't need it in my life. Yeah. But sometimes, you learn by your lessons. Sometimes you have to go through it to learn your lesson. Says, wait a minute. And then, a lot of this um, thing with the black empowerment, and I look at it, a lot of it is being more than what it is. A lot of it is being taken advantage of. You know what I'm saying? It's like I said, there's right racism. You can be proud of who you are, but when you use it to downtrodden or to attack another person of another race, then that's wrong racism. And that's the problem, that a lot of these black empowerment groups are just a reciprocal of what the white empowerment groups are doing. It's no difference. You're just on the other side of the coin. That's all it is. And I see that a lot. And I understand why that is going on. Because, again, my brother sent me a new research that came out with DNA of African Americans and in the Caribbean. There was more African slaves taken to the Caribbean than there was in the Americas. More went to the Caribbean and Brazil. But the thing what happened is that in that part of Brazil and the Caribbean, they had the Spaniard, the Portuguese had a system called baracamiento, if I'm saying that right, and that is the whitening thing, the whitening of the whitening of the race. Whereas in America, which a lot of blacks are not, they're aware of it, but they don't say, is that here the Englishmen, the slave owners, they had a system that the more a woman gave birth to their seed, children, half breeds, the more she could win her freedom. Check that out. So they used to either rape the women or tell them that, hey, the more kids you have by me, this is slave owner. So, so genetically, when you look at a lot of African Americans genetically, and there are a lot of them are afraid to do the DNA. But when they do the DNA, they find a lot Irish, they find German, they find English, they find a good percentage of their genetic makeup has that. More in Caribbean because they had that system called the whitening. In other words, they wanted to procreate with the slaves so that they could whitening. They had a process that they could whitening the slave in terms of genetically. But the thing is about in the Caribbean is that the culture was allowed to keep. They were allowed to keep their cultural expression, or they hid it very well within the Christian system that they had. You know what I'm saying? That's where you get the Santeria, Lucumí, that's where you get all these systems in Brazil, Haiti, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo. You get that system, very African cultural system, very, very closer than when you do in America with the African Americans. They lost a lot of their cultural expressions. They had to develop their own expressions through jazz, through the blues. They had to develop their own. But whereas the Caribbeans and Latin America were able to keep a lot of their rhythms from Africa. They just had to recode it, But that's a new study that's being done. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I wanted to talk about how one thing I noticed, especially like in music, we're going to segue into a little bit into music. I don't want to stay too long. How long have I been here? Damn, already an hour? Woof, boy. I'm speaking a lot today, boy. It's sea moss. Music, if you take music, the word music, muse, look at the word amusement park. It tends to Muse tends to be about pleasure, right? To muse. Entertain, to entertain the mental, the mind. You know what I'm saying? Soothing. And it's up to par because the first form of music, if you look at ancient Kemet, one of the ancient civilization, the sign was the when you see the what they call the aorta and the lungs. So the symbol was like a stick like that, and you see the part of the lung like that, right? That sign for utterance, speech, and utterance. Also for goodness, right? The first form of that expression was in a form of vocalization. When you look at a baby, that's what I'm saying. I study around me, my natural environment, my nature. When you look at a baby, my granddaughter, 4 months years old, you see her when she feel happy. I notice she starts utterance. When you look at a mama, when she has a baby, you know, music soothes the body. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first expression of musing, you know, to soothe, to pacify things. You know what I'm saying? The oldest, I guess, recorded song would be the Hurrian, number 6, I think it is. But you got papyrus in ancient Kemet that has songs. You know what I'm saying? So those songs were songs of soothing, of goodness, happy and joy. Then, of course, when there was no joy, no happiness, right? They always leaned towards music to try to soothe that. So you really didn't have music that really, that I know of, that was about displeasure. If it was about displeasure, then the frequency wouldn't be so soothing, right? So, when you look at it, there are music that is chaotic, you know, contusion. For instance, I like the work that Stevie Wonder did with Songs of the Key of Life. He's got a song called Contusion. If you listen to it, it's like a fusion. And you can hear that clash, contusion it's called. That's expression of that musical piece. I think also that Bach, Mozart, one of those Renaissance composer also did music like that. I think that they were mad because at that time, when you talk about Renaissance music and classical music, Bach music and stuff like that, a lot of that music was commissioned by either a king or a high court. You know what I'm saying? Commissioned them to compose and to play this music. And if they wanted to rebel against it, they would write music that were kind of like out of the ordinary. It wasn't soothing music. You know what I'm saying? I think Mozart got in trouble for that. Beethoven also, I think, got in trouble also for that. Got some drawback from the commissioners of the music. So what I want to say is this: when you deal with frequencies, I'm doing work right now about frequencies and how it deals with the chakras. You know what I'm saying? And I can't demonstrate it now because I got the frequency generator on my phone. And so what I do is I broke down the 9 chakras, not the 7. Well, actually, the 7 chakras, I got the frequencies for them, but there's 2 other chakras that I don't have the frequency with, and that's the first one is the star chakra, the one that connects you with the star, what they call the star chakra, and the earth chakra. I think the earth, I might be able to find it because earth has a frequency. If I'm not mistaken, the earth frequency is the frequency of the key of the middle C or D. I don't know. I gotta look back. But the star frequency is the one that I'm missing, and I need to go. But the other The other centers, like the root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, all of them, they have frequencies that coincide, and they have a particular key. You know, D minor or D or what they call D6, the sixth octave of the D. You know what I'm saying? They have their frequency. And what's important is that frequencies is a dimension. Now we're multi-dimensional beings. These frequencies affect us. In other words, they can affect by the way we react to certain things. Like for instance, did you know that when they went to get Noriega in Panama, Noriega ran into a in order to for them not to arrest him, he ran into a Catholic compound, a monk Catholic compound, so that he can gain immunity, because the Catholic Church has immunity. You know, it's like a sacred ground where if you can go in there and diplomatic immunity, you can vow diplomatic immunity through the Catholic and Vatican Catholic. Because the Vatican is their own state in their own country, and they have embassies. So the Catholic churches are like embassies for Vatican. So I remember Noriega ran in there, and one thing, in order to draw him out, they started playing with big speakers rock music. This man couldn't stand rock music, or very hard frequency punk rock and rock, until finally he came out. He couldn't stand it anymore, and he came out. Frequency affect your body. You know what I'm saying? By certain frequencies, you can see how people move in their body. You know, certain music have a certain thing. I remember when we were young, and this was in high school. You know what I'm saying? I remember we were listening to Parliament. You know, we listened to soul music. You know, Sly and the Family Stone, James Brown. You know, we were dancing and shit. All of a sudden, I remember one time we were at a house party, and somebody played. They said, "Yo, check this out! I just got this. Check this out." It was Trans Europe Express by Kraftwerk, and I know you guys know anything about Trans Europe Express. Anyway, we could move to that. Later on, of course, everybody adopted, and then the robot came out. You know, you know, how we are as people. We adopt to anything. But anyway, Trans Europe Express was played, man. We were like, what the hell is that? Trans, get it? Europe Express. This technology was now entering into the music world. Just like the Beatles. Back then, when the Beatles came and the wave of the Beatles music came of their interpretation of what rock and roll is, right? Or what black music is, guys, they just mimicked it to the way their expression, their frequency, and started a whole new type of sound. You know what I'm saying? And then they started using a lot of the Druids. They said that the Beatles, and you could hear it, they use a lot of the Druids harmonics that came from Druids, because the Druids was an ancient society in England. They also left behind works on tablets. They also left melodies, musical works. There are musical works on these tablets too. In Babylonian tablets, in ancient Kemet, there are musical works also on the walls. And then you got tribes that had kept a lot of folklore music. I love listening to Hamza el-Din, El-Ud, or Nubia. This man came from a tribe from the Nile River, and he continued on he even won a Grammy. The music of the Nile River, the oud and the duf drums, unbelievable. I love his work. I'm a big Hamza Dean fan, bro. Big. It resonates with me, that type of music, especially from the Happy River, what they call the Nile River. You know what I'm saying? And so frequencies play a very huge part, you know, in music. You know, so those are some of the works that I've been, you know, research that I've been doing. Now, the thing about music is this, and let's connect that with spirituality. So remember what I said about spirituality being the character and the personality that the captain that drives that tells the energy, I need more energy or I need less energy, you know, and guides the ship, the body to do his work. Well, if you have a bad character or personality, it's gonna show in the expression. Music is the muse, it's the expression, the vibration that you put forth out. So that's why it's important for musicians to develop their character and their personality. And then the reason why I go into the biblical narrative too is because to help my brothers and sisters get out of that sunken place, become free thinkers, become the Stevie Wonder, become even Michael Jackson, become these artists that are out of the sunken place so that you can know about frequency and how it affects and develop your character and personality, your own personality. And that when you put that forth, then your body of work reflects that. That's why at one time, if you look at great artists, they have their body of work have what they call a concept idea, an album that deals with a concept. You know, Marvin Gaye, at the time that he was able to do his own thing and able to express himself as an artist, look at the work that he did. His character personality was about learning, knowing about the civil rights and knowing about the atrocity in life. So what he did, he brought songs of freedom or songs of healing with what's going on. That's his work, what's going on. Then, of course, he had Let's Get It On, the concept of the root chakra, of the sexual chakra. And he was about exploring that. Stevie Wonder, when he started doing his first finale, Inner Visions, and he started to express his views, his character personality started to be expressed. They got out of the originally Motown. Was like you said, Berry Gordy had like this car assembly, came from that era, was a manufactured Motown. In the beginning was a manufactured sound. They had a system going. They had a system, an assembly system going. That's why most of the sound from Motown sound the same. It was the Motown sound. So the artists started to reach out on their own and started to create their own sound. So we call concept music. And you really, really, I was lucky that, in Florida, I got to record with some artists that were about concept, weren't political in a way. Only one artist I know that kind of hit on the political thing, and that was KG Amulo. And I like this work. As a matter of fact, Bill Cosby liked this work a lot. We got to play at the Hollywood Bowl in 2012. The Hollywood Bowl, we were honored to play at the Hollywood Bowl with Robin Thicke and a lot of other artists that were there at the Hollywood for the Playboy Jazz Fest. And the reason why he was able to, because his album, Moving Train, if you listen to it, I had the pleasure of recording a lot of percussion on it. It had a concept of work. You know what I'm saying? When you listen to the lyrics, you know what I'm saying? And the content of the work was of embodiment of social political. Some of it was very social political. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that all artists should be social political, but music, originally music in this country, it was developed, was part of a social political movement. What happened was, for instance, gospel is a social political movement. You know what I'm saying? The blues was a social political movement. People in the blues, in slavery, picking the kind of blues, and the rural area of them doing, they were speaking, expressing their environment. That's where blues come out from. Jazz, the same thing. Jazz was, artists coming together, and they say jazz because it means what's up with that jazz. You know what I'm saying? It was really because the society at that time, a certain group were into, drugs and hanging out and express, music and just going bananas, I call it. You know what I'm saying? Um, but then it started to take on a social political movement too, because when you get people like John Coltrane, a Thelonious Monk, and you listen to their work. Now, John Coltrane was ahead of his time. John Coltrane started with Love Supreme. God, it's social political. These giant, what I call giant, or these artists were so invested on what was happening around them, social politically, and started to express that and offering their healing by using certain frequency too, because you got the 432 frequency. You know what I'm saying? Which I like what Billy Carson was saying about an artist that he had that recorded a whole album, Donny Arcade, that I think KRS-One is part of, is in there. They recorded a whole album under the 432 frequency, which is the frequency of love, or which is where the 432 frequency, I think is the crown chakra, right? And they started recording. So you can take frequencies, do a body of work on that frequency, plan that out, and express according to that, that vibration. So you see, music is a very spiritual thing. It's just that along came a class of people in the music industry, a class of people that started to just make music for commercialism, what they call pop music. The pop, you know what I'm saying, had no really social political thing, but it deals with popular, things, candy things, or started to do pop. I don't know how else to say it. It's didn't have no social political content to it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of it was purposely done because music has a way of reaching a large amount of people. It's a medium. It reaches a lot of people. Musicians understand that we are multidimensionals, and the way we manipulate the frequencies and the vibration, we can affect people. That's how you have some artists that affect people in a certain way because they know it. And you got some engineers. I had the pleasure of working with Bruce Sweden. You know who Bruce Sweden is, and the way that happened was through KG Amulo, and a brother Mikan. I forgot Mikan, good brother, man. I lost contact with him. Very very good brother, and he was studying engineering. He was like a protege of Bruce Sweden. Bruce Sweden, if anybody don't know, was Quincy Jones' engineer. He recorded a lot of the Shy Lights. He recorded Michael Jackson Thriller. He recorded all of Michael Jackson's works, and he even did work for J-Lo. Bruce Sweden is the epitome of what you call engineering. You know what I'm saying? The man teaches around the world, seminars about teaching. And one thing I noticed about Bruce Sweden, when I went to record for him, it was a song, a very beautiful song that I think they were pushing it towards Michael Bublé. And I don't know, if it got to go on his album, whatever. But anyway, very nice song. He wanted me to do the bongos. One thing I know about Bruce Sweden, that before I went into the recording booth, he had me sit by him next to the console. And this is the same console that Michael Jackson recorded Thriller. The same console, nice console, not that big, but medium size. And Michael Jackson used to sit there because I seen pictures the same spot and record, and that's where they recorded the Thriller album, the Off the Wall album, and then the Thriller album. But anyway, I sat there with Bruce Sweden, and he said, "Play." He noticed I was a little nervous, held back. The man told me to stand up. He gave me a hug. That's why I call him Papa Bear, because he's a big dude. Gave me a big hug. I felt the love, man. I felt such a vibe coming from this man. Then I sat back on the bongos and I started playing. He says, "Relax. I want you to relax. You got it now. You man." And the way this man directed my inner being, my consciousness, my inner being, my character to get on that bongo and do the work. Then when it was time to record, they put me in this room. I never seen it before. These little, what they call, and I think he's the one who's the inventor of it. It might have the patent to that stuff. They're little columns, because they were putting these mics a certain way, and they were like trying to get every sound a frequency. He wanted to capture the movement of the silence. Check how deep this is. Before I hit that drum, he wanted to capture all of it. He wanted to get. It was just amazing. I learned a lot about. It really took me in place sitting there with that man and watching him do his thing. That how acoustic engineering goes. That's what I wanted to be, and how the frequencies has to be right. It has to be right in your body of who you are, and then to the instrument, and then the recording process. Unbelievable, man. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times, it's important of the spiritual process, this the character and personality process, the development when it comes to an artist and when it comes to musical expression. You know what I'm saying? There's some musicians out there that I don't know. They just think that by learning, playing, and it's a lot of tricks. You know what I'm saying? And I, it's what you want to do is what you want to do. But like I say, even to the time of ancient music, on to the time of classical music with Mozart, Baruch, and to the early jazz music, it was all about social political expression. You know that. Geopolitical, social political. You know what I'm saying? And that's what makes artists. That's why I like Willie Colon at one time, with the in Latin music too, with the Fania. They started, a lot of the artists started to do that. They started, and then you had other artists that just wanted to, I call it, I don't know, fake the funk. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Who not really spiritually invested, or they're afraid to develop that in themselves. And I feel that as a person that's invested in frequencies and the multidimensional, the higher dimensions when it comes to frequencies and vibrations that affect us, affect the planet, that we have to be aware of it, conscious of it, and we have to. We're born with the talent to express that and to be healers on this planet. When you look at in Revelations, you look at trumpets and noise and every time you hear the word of God, it's actually the frequency of the Elohims. But we got to be careful with that also, right? What about the frequencies of nature? Nature, Nataru. That frequency has to be developed, has to be implemented. You know what I'm saying? And that's just my outtake. You know what I'm saying? You know, I kind of like thinking out the box. You know what I'm saying? And I look at artists, their works as a body of work. Like if I was going to a gallery and checking out the body of works, how those artists take color, the frequency of color, and express themselves. I listen to music, the body of works, and listen to how they are stroking their colors on the musical thing. You know what I'm saying? When you go into music, you also go into metaphysics. You know what I'm saying? And I haven't done that here, but maybe I'll do that another time. I'll break down how you got space, matter, and time, which is the triad of nature. Your space, and then matter is anything that occupies that space, and then you have time as a relationship, the Asia, the measure, right? When music, you have the space is the harmony. Harmonics is harmony. It's all of the frequencies together. Out of that, you develop your melody. You see, some artists use melody and then they develop harmony amongst that, but it's still the melody, they still are grabbing it harmonically from a body of harmonics. So harmony is your ta, your opening. And what drives that harmony, what's in that is your melody. Your melody can also take on different forms depending on the harmony. You know that. Your musicians know what I'm talking about. And then your time is the relationship that each one of those melody notes are giving a duration and the relationship it has with the harmony. And it all comes together. So we can break that down. You know what I'm saying? And how that deals with physics and metaphysics. So when you understand this and you get a body of harmonic work, you can develop your melody and you can develop the relationship between the melody and the harmony. The relationship, the duration, the measurement is where you get your time signature. You know what I'm saying? And it's all, it's mental. At the same time, all is mental. Even music. To muse somebody and you have this ability to know, not just believe, but to know and how it reflects. So now I'm cautious now when I get into even as a percussionist, about the tonality and the frequencies. And you want to make sure, because I've been into situations in studios where it was not favorable. There was a lot of jealousy and animosity, and when that happens in that environment, you don't get good body of work. You don't. I've never seen that. And you got documents of even rock music, certain bands that when the chemistry is not there, everything falls apart. The chemistry has to be there. There has to be that chemistry. So a lot of times you can walk in and it's not. So I'm very cautious now. I'm a recording. Chemistry has to be right. And sometimes you can set it, the character personality the right way. In other words, you light up your incense. You make sure, there's certain things that as an artist, you go in, you got to make sure, say, listen, the lighting's got to be right. The scent got to be right. I want either candle or I want some incense. You know what I'm saying? And let me meditate first. Let me get it going, and then let's get it popping. Let's make sure that we reach that higher level of spirituality before, And I recorded sometimes that I had a lot of artists, tune the light down for me, and and do I need anything, and making sure that I was comfortable and whatever, So I did have that. I'm gracious and I'm appreciative of that. You know who I'm talking about. One thing I know about Rico Monaco was one that did that for me, and that was important. You know what I'm saying? Gary Williams, you know, when I recorded with KG Amulo, oh yeah, that was a pretty good favorable condition because the brother that I was working with, the engineer it's big on that. Wanted to make sure that some studios make sure that the environment is just right, for that particular musicians that's coming in. They make sure that they feel comfortable and they're able to, that character personality is able to be expressed and able to come out in that music. That's very, very important, man. When that's not there, that's when you see the failing. That's what happened to James Brown. When they started to lose that with his band, then he wound up with another band and another band. They lost that momentum. You know what I'm saying? They lost that momentum. And so you hear that the music has changed. You know what I'm saying? That's what happens with a lot of artists. You know what I'm saying? You got to keep that vibe going. You got to keep that frequency. That character and personality has to be developed. So that's why it's important that, you know, we are aware of this sunken place. Something, this COVID-19 has changed the way we live our life. It's also going to change the music. It's going to change the music. And one thing I noticed that we're repeating the 1919 and 1918 pandemic. Everything is being repeated today, even to the point that fashion. I seen this guy walk down Fifth Avenue. He was showing the walls of Saks Fifth Avenue. The dresses and the fashion was like if it was in the 1920s. Then you had the beginning of the trap when they're doing and that's trap music. The beginning of the trap drums was coming in the 1920 with jazz and contemporary music. Today, trap music. And it's like, yo, everything seems to be like, I don't know if someone went back with because they got these quantum computers that go back into time. And did we warp ourselves back into this time situation? Now, let me go on to another tangent. I could go into another tangent. That's how my mind works sometimes. That, speaking with certain people, Bill Gates has a quantum storage facility, a quantum storage device that they actually, there's a movie out there called Alter Carbon. Also, another movie I think that Johnny Depp did. They're able to take the consciousness. And now I could tell you from experience this. I was in the hospital for 6 months, right? The first couple of weeks that I was in the hospital, it was like my body was gone, dead. And I was in a garden. I was in a room and whatever. And my subconscious mind, I wasn't conscious of my room and anything around me. I was in another world, which is called the subconscious, the dream world. You know what I'm saying? They can take that because that's your brain and your body chemically inducing certain chemicals in your body, okay, and put you in that state of mind. They could take your consciousness and put it into a computer and transfer that consciousness into another body. I'm thinking robotic, AI is coming in, or robotic. So you have these consciousness of people into a new body. This is the work that they're trying to do now. It's science. It sounds scientific. You'll say, "Hey, the Carlo, he's gone." Wait, but yo, when we were back then looking at freaking Star Trek, and he goes, "Whoop, beam me up, Scotty," where it looks like a cell phone. What were we doing then, huh? That's sci-fi, right? But look at today. Don't we do the same shit? Uber, come pick me up. Yo, reality, man. It's just ahead of time. So this is what's going on. They're saying that that's the reason why Bill Gates is the way he is because he knows that Microsoft had created this quantum storage where they can store consciousness into a quantum computer. And so these quantum computer cost millions and millions of dollars. And I heard they say that people can go back into time with the algorithms because everything is deal with algorithms and coding, the universe and that. And they can go back into and create this time space because they did a lot of work on that. I got a book with Hawkins that I need to get back, and I need to do more reading on that, about speaking about time space and how the manipulation of time space and how it works. So if these people are doing these studies, who knows if they're manipulating time space? Who knows? You know. But anyway, I want to just leave it there. Um, saying I guess next time we'll go more into music, and we'll connect that with biblical narrative if you want to go to biblical. But I like more or less speaking about the frequencies, and maybe next time what we'll do, we'll just if I can get my generator up and frequencies, and demonstrate to you how the different seats and the frequencies, and how you can explore that, and actually do an actual demonstration of that. Okay, peace.